Hello, good morning, everyone. So, this is another great and wonderful day that the Lord has actually made. And I was actually, following about the hurricane that was happening. I think it happened sometimes back in North Carolina. And this one actually was so deadly, very deadly, because most of us in Africa, when we hear of hurricanes, we cannot even comprehend what hurricanes are. We can't even comprehend hurricanes are. Sometimes somebody will ask you, like, how can an hurricane, carry the entire, carry the entire house and bury the entire house and all that. Some of us, I tell you, God has blessed us in Africa that some of the calamities that are happening outside here, we may not actually be able to understand them. When we hear of hurricanes, we hear of maybe snow, that how can the entire world be, entire country be as cold as fridge, refrigerator and all that. So sometimes we actually don't know what these things are. Is until we follow them on television or we follow some of them on internet. That's when now we'll end up understanding what exactly a hurricane is. And I saw one that happened in North Carolina. This is actually devastating. This was so sad. This was so sad. Houses were covered with water, and it looks like riverbanks actually, broke their boundaries, and houses were actually flooded. This was very sad, very, very sad. I wonder what will happen to us in this country if such a thing really happens. I don't really understand, but the Lord knows. The Lord knows. And I saw this hurricane happening. It is called Hurricane Helen. I don't know where they get these names. Hurricane Helen, that damaged a lot of things in North Carolina. And this was very, 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 very tough. And without further ado, please let us just, I'm inviting you to see what exactly is really happening down there. Please welcome.
This is an unprecedented storm, and it's causing us to have an unprecedented response.
This is the city of Asheville in the western mountains of North Carolina, 2,000 feet above sea level and hundreds of miles away from the nearest coastline. But such was the force of Hurricane Helen that nowhere in its path was safe.
We are surging search and rescue teams to help rescue people who are still stranded but can't communicate because cell phone service is down.
As many as 600 people are still on the missing list as search teams fan out across the state, navigating the worst flooding to hit the region in a century, with thousands of downed trees, power and mobile outages, and hundreds of closed roads.
It's indescribable. I don't know, it just was covered in litter and trees and mud, and it's stinky, and it was all the way up the street up here. It just looked like the bottom of a river.
And this is the surface of Lake Lure, an hour below the mountains of Asheville, now an apocalyptic stew of rubble and debris after Helene ripped through the state, unleashing torrential downpours and catastrophic mudslides, killing 47 in North Carolina alone so far, and more than 115 in total since last Thursday. That's when Helene first made landfall on Florida's Gulf Coast as the most powerful hurricane, a Category 4, ever to hit the so-called Big Bend region, before tearing northeast through Georgia, the Carolinas and Tennessee. Homes were swept away in the storm that had been a Category 1 just the day before, but in a now all too familiar tale, Helene picked up massive amounts of energy from the unusually warm Gulf waters, exacerbated, scientists say, by climate change. The result was a 350-mile wide, devastating storm with wind speeds up to 140 miles an hour at their peak.
And have you reached out to President Biden about federal relief efforts?
No, I haven't reached out to him. No, I think he's sleeping right now, actually.
The hurricane collided with presidential politics too, with Donald Trump arriving in Georgia this afternoon, ostensibly to survey the damage and use the hurricane response to attack Joe Biden, who had in fact returned to the White House earlier than planned on Sunday and had already addressed the devastation in earlier remarks.
I've directed my team to provide every available resource as fast as possible to your communities to rescue, recover, and to begin rebuilding.
Biden says he plans to visit storm-ravaged areas this week as Vice President Kamala Harris cut short a campaign trip in Nevada to return to Washington, D.C. to be briefed on the crisis. This is the second powerful hurricane to hit parts of America in just over 2 months. And many predict scenes of devastation, not just on the coast, but deep into the country, could become the norm as rising temperatures from human-induced climate change take their ever more destructive toll.
Are these the effects of climate change? Are those the effects of climate change? Wow. Wow. Like, hey, the houses are being carried by water. Something that I've not seen. Wow. That is scary, man. Very scary. Very, very scary. And that's why we need to be very prayerful. Very, very prayerful. Because some of these calamities are actually indications of what purely what the scriptures are really saying. You know, what the scriptures are really saying. We need to be very, very prayerful. Very, very prayerful. You know, and believe you me, with all the facilities that the US government has and everything, but you see that is a natural calamity. And you can see what the government is doing. It's really trying to help, you know, save lives. Sometimes I imagine if something like that really happens in my country, I wonder what will happen. Something like that really happens in my country. I wonder what will happen. That's why sometimes also people in my country, we need to thank God for everything. Because if countries like America can go through this, you know, and with all the facilities, technologies, and everything that they do have, look at what is happening. Look at what is happening. And when you look at countries like us, where our leaders are just joking, all they do is just to impeach each other, man, this is scary. This is scary. But all we do is just to pray and ask Heavenly Father to keep us safe. You know, keep us safe. Just keep us safe. Wherever we are, just keep us safe. Very scary, my dear brothers. Very, very scary. Man, this is scary. Yo!